Welcome back to Music, Movies, and Hoops Interviews. I'm Sasha Clairvazian. As always, if you enjoy the content we're making, sign up for our YouTube channel. That would be awesome. Help us grow this brand and get notified when we have new videos. Today, I have an interview I've been really looking forward to. This has been in the works for a while. I'm very excited. I have an incredibly accomplished Nashville musician, Mr. Jamie Kent, with us. Billboard charting singer-songwriter, entrepreneur, founder of Band Ambassador Media Group, Musicians for a Smoke-Free Nashville, and people supporting artists. Jamie, so good to see you. How are you doing today?
Oh, it's good to be here, Sasha. I'm doing pretty good. It's been at anxiety level orange all week with the election, but it seems like things are pointing in the right direction. So I'm coming down a little bit.
I think when this comes out, we will know our president. But what has this week been like for you?
It's just been a combination of anxiety-ridden, staring at the TV, waiting for little micro updates, to then being like, I gotta get the hell out of here and going for a hike.
Well said. So, Jamie, I've known you for a long time. We went to high school together.
Sure did.
I knew you when you were you Bernardo in West Side Story? Did I have the right character?
No, I was Tony.
Okay. So I knew you when you were Tony in Northampton High School's production of West Side Story. Since then, you've gone on. Rolling Stone called you an artist you need to know. Huffington Post said you were a born showman and a must-watch artist. And most recently, Nashville Lifestyles named you one of the 25 most fascinating people of 2020, calling you a Renaissance man and putting you next to Taylor Swift. Congratulations, Jamie, first of all.
It's crazy.
These are remarkable accomplishments. This is my question, Jamie. How the hell did you do it?
Just a lot of hard work, man. A lot of hard work. I'm asked that by people. It's, there's no special formula, no special sauce. Really, it's a lot of hard work. You're given some talents or gifts at a certain level, but a lot of people are. And in order to get there, the more and more I've been in this industry, and the more and more I've come to meet and see successful people, almost always the ingredient is hard work, because, there's a lot of talented people out there. There's a lot of talented people here in Nashville, a lot of people that are way more talented than me, most of which aren't willing to work as hard as I am. So that's and you find the harder you work, the better you get at something. I know that it's kind of a cliche at this point, but Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours idea is, there's something really to be said about that. And, I know there are certain people that have a talent level that, their first album was their most brilliant, and right. And it all goes downhill from there. And I like to think of myself as the opposite of that, where my first album was probably quite embarrassing, and they've each gotten better. So
where did your work ethic come from, Jamie?
It's hard to know, but my mom has always been a really hard worker, and I am an only child, so kind of all the pressure on you kind of thing I always kind of got in trouble for speaking out and asking questions. And a lot of people thought it was like ADD or something, I needed to see a therapist. And my mom was always like, no, he's special. And I was like, which is probably what every mom says, but for some reason I let her convince me of that. And then I just was like, well, I can't let her down. I got to work hard. So,
right. So many things about your story I find inspiring and exciting. And so congratulations to you. We're in the same industry. I'm also a musician. So I think I have such a real understanding of how hard it is. So I know that everything you've accomplished is a real achievement. For me, growing up in Northampton, I didn't fully understand that you could make a living as a musician who wasn't famous. I saw people on MTV, and then I knew people who played music on the side and had a career, but people who made a middle income, can own a house, can do music full time, but not be playing arenas was possible. And it took me moving to Austin to even understand that I saw, oh my God, these people play a couple weddings a week. They teach. They have a song in a comedy movie or in a show. And they get by, and they're not rich, but they're making a salary. You just jumped right in. I mean, I remember you being on your same track that you are today, 10 years later at 22. We grew up in the same place. So, what did you know that I didn't know? How did you know that you could do this?
Well, I always knew that I wanted to manage my own career, and that I've always kind of thought about things differently and just tried to see opportunity in places that, I sort of see like the vision for entrepreneurship is very similar to a vision for writing a song. You're sort of looking at the world in a slightly different way, paying attention to the details that some people aren't paying attention to. And if it's a song that someone says something, you're like, oh my God, that's a lyric, I got to put it down, and you write that down. Or if you're having a conversation about a problem that someone has, and you go, oh, that feels like an opportunity for something. I got to think about this more. And it's a similar way of thinking. I've always loved that way of thinking. I think my first business was a lemonade stand in Florence. And I timed it when the farmer's market was across the street from my house every Wednesday. And I would set up shop and, make $20. And I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. And I was in elementary school. And so when I graduated Northampton High, I knew that I wanted to do music.
You went to Babson.
I did. I went to Babson. So I chose Babson over Berkeley at the time.
You got into Berkeley.
Yep. Because it was one of these things where it was like, I can go the music route, but I've seen people that are going to Berkeley and they're leaving and they're not doing music. They're getting jobs in another industry because they don't know how to survive and make money. And Babson at the time, and still is, the #1 school for entrepreneurship in the country. And I was like, well, that will give me a more useful skill as long as I continue to do music. And I studied music at the side, studied voice at New England Conservatory at the same time, and wrote songs and started bands and did that, and confirmed that was still my passion along the way. And it was easy to get swayed by job offers coming out of college, but it was still like, no, this is the thing that, is going to make me happy. And I now have a skill set in which I can figure out a way to make money. And at least if I'm working my butt off doing something I love, it won't feel as much like work. That was the approach. And I would say there was times the first year at Babson where I was like, what the hell am I doing? It was all finance kids. I'm singing a musical in the room, and they're like, what is this? But and I thought about transferring, and then I came home and realized that everyone was kind of unhappy the first year of college, that it's just kind of like, it's been built up to be the greatest thing ever. And then you're like, wait a minute, this is a sham. But, by the time you leave and by the time you make more friends and you do it, then it was one of the more practical and wiser decisions I've ever made was going there. And they've been so supportive of me coming out of it as well. And
I think in this conversation today, Jamie, I want to try and uncover some of these golden nuggets that have attributed to your success. And I certainly think we've landed on one here. To me, if you want to be a musician, you should study music. For you to think, if I want to be a musician, I need to study business and I need to understand what's going on and put on my business suit and take off my leather jacket, especially at like 18. That's an incredibly mature decision. Could you maybe distill one lesson you learned in college that you've carried with you to today?
Yeah, so I had this class, it was called the Ultimate Entrepreneurial Challenge, and you're in teams of 5. They have major executives come in every week from huge companies and present a challenge. You have to come up with the solution to the challenge with your team, and then based on their ranking of that's what grade you get. But the nugget that came from it was every week, it was 60 people in the class. Every week, one team of 5 had to feed the entire class dinner.
Okay.
And the professor was like, I hope you don't have to pay for it. And it was this moment of, whoa, wait a minute, we can get something of value to 60 people in return, something of value to this restaurant without any money being exchanged.
Wow. Yes.
And it was this light bulb moment for me. And the next summer, me and another buddy from Northampton took that idea and got sponsored to drive across country and review craft breweries for a magazine. And And that was the first thing I was like, duh, what am I going to do this? I'm going to drink for free. That's my first, the first mindset there. And so we got sponsored by Coleman and we camped along the way and we reviewed like 40 craft breweries and wrote an article on it and got paid to drink beer for a summer. And then as I went into music, I honestly think that became a foundation of how I built my career as an independent artist was brand partnerships. And there's various levels of brand partnerships, and they range from being a bar band troubadour to Taylor Swift. And the deals are going to be vastly different, but they're all of importance for different brands and different artists at different times. And I have gone through almost every phase of that, obviously not the Taylor Swift multi-million-dollar phase, hopefully someday, but as you start off, what do you have to offer? I'm playing 150 shows this year. I'm in front of 100 people a night. What can I give? Well, I can show off something for somebody. And at this stage, I could really use some gear. I could really use that guitar. I could really use that coffee, whatever it is, the thing that you need and are buying all the time that costs you money. Money saved is money earned. So that's kind of how it started for me. I built these relationships, and gradually, as I got more fans and could offer more value, they could offer more things in return. And then I started solving problems for those brands that in terms of accessing and dealing with artists and how to make the relationship the most fruitful it could be. And then helping friends do the same with brands. And that's really where my kind of business band ambassador media group developed and spawned from.
You've been partnering with brands your whole career?
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
So there's such a range of them. I would say the biggest one and the longest relationship that's been the most fruitful is Bose. I was I think the second or third Bose live music artist. They have a live music division, and I've been playing their systems from the beginning. In the beginning, it was them giving me a system to go out on the road that would have cost me thousands of dollars. And then
how did that initially happen?
Relationships. It was a friend of mine, Matt Slahetka. His bandmate at the time either worked at or was friends with somebody at Bose. Heard about Matt. Matt was the first one. And then Matt referred them to me, and I was the second one. And then I referred them to other people, and that's how it kind of grew right in the beginning. And they were looking for people that were road dogs on the road, playing shows that could show off the system, talk about it in a meaningful way. And it's only grown from there. We've done festivals together. We've done concerts together, tours together, and it's been a really cool thing. And that's like, the shining example of how we've grown together.
Yes.
Right in the beginning, I remember right in like the first year, I was like, I'll do anything, anyone that's willing to give me anything, I'm in. Like, let's figure this out. And I remember one of the funnier ones was a company called Naughty Bits that had they were energy supplements that were like spirulina, and I think you were just supposed to take them like as like a pill supplement. And we're like, oh, this will be great. We're on the road driving hours. We need energy. This is awesome. And then there were this like green pills, and we thought it'd be funny to chew them. And our mouths just turned completely green. And then it turned into a prank where we would offer them to people and tell them they had to chew them. And so that there's a spectrum here. And, I encourage
that's so funny.
Explore the opportunities, decide what's on brand for you.
I want to eventually get to where you're at now, because I want to hear about that and where you're headed. But I do want to understand how you got here more, because I think it's just absolutely fascinating. So when you graduated college, were you already, it sounds like you were because of what you majored in and the experience you had at Babson. Were you already thinking about, I need to build brand partnerships, I need to think about this from a business acumen? Or were you thinking the way all of us were thinking at 22, I just want to play shows and be a rock star?
I would say 50-50,
Okay.
I remember my senior year of college, I had a mentor there, a guy named Len Schlesinger, and I sat down with him and I said, I have this really good job offer, and I have my musical career that I even came to Babson knowing that I wanted to do, but I'm not sure which to go with. And he was like, just think about your music like an entrepreneur, and I have no doubt that it'll work out. And so that was like right from the beginning. I was like, I just have to think of it like it's a startup. If I can approach it like a startup, and the product is my music, and my passion, then I will hopefully have a different approach than people. And at the time, I had done a research project on business models and exit strategies. And the typical ones are you sell your business to someone bigger, or you go public and become a publicly traded company. And then there was a third one that no one was talking about at Babson at the time, which was going co-op, where you sell your business back to your employees.
I remember you doing this.
Like, how do I turn that into something in music? Instead of employees, it's fans. And how do I get them to invest in my career from the beginning? Because there's this catch-22 that a lot of us have when we first want to do this. It's that, I'm not making enough from shows to support myself or my family. So I have to have a side job.
Yes.
If I have a side job, then I'm not going all in on my career. And so I'm not putting in those 10,000 hours, or it's going to take me a lot longer to put in those 10,000 hours. So there's this catch-22. And I started this thing called The Collective, and this was in 2009 or 10.
Yes.
And I was able to raise almost $20,000 right from the beginning of basically friends, family. When you start a business, they call it the friends and family round, where you go to your friends and family, you're like, please invest in my company and help me get off the ground. And that's sort of what we did. And then I gave them first listens to music, and they got to vote on things like the album artwork. And, this was before Kickstarter and before Patreon.
Jamie, that's what I was going to say is, man, you should get more credit. You were 10 years before Patreon.
Yeah, but they just have a better, and I always knew it too. I was like, I saw the opportunity then, but I didn't have a skill set to like build a technological platform. And I saw that like, in order to do that, I'm gonna have to stop playing music, and I care about the music too much. So someone else eventually is going to build a better platform. And at first it was Kickstarter, and I utilized Kickstarter to like, okay, I'm going to fuse the two. I'm going to do a Kickstarter project for an album, and then everybody that backs me on Kickstarter is going to get a partnership in The Collective, and they're going to be with me forever. Because Kickstarter to me was not solving the problem of like creating long lasting relationships. It was just a one and done kind of thing.
Yes.
Patreon eventually came along with a longer lasting platform, and I think it's great. And I'm part of Patreon as well. And a lot of collective members have come and joined that. And, honestly, like, probably 5-7 years ago, the Collective definitely like, it just became part of my fan base. They weren't buying in to anything. It was just like, I know these are some of my greatest and oldest, most loyal fans, and I'll always send them stuff first, and I'll always seek their advice. And then as I grow these things into new models, I'll hit them up and say, hey, this is the new way we're going to do it. And it's worked out well.
Man, this is all just kind of hitting me now in real time, which is why I was so excited for this conversation, because I knew moments like this would come up. But I can't tell you, I know countless Austin musicians who are making their living through Patreon right now, especially in COVID. And the fact that you were following that model in 2009, it's really forward thinking. It's really ingenuitive and really cool. Did you know anyone else who was doing that, or was it purely you connecting dots with what your mentor was telling you and what you were thinking about with different possibilities for business models?
There was only one other person that I saw doing something similar at the time. Okay. And I didn't know them personally, and it wasn't like, I think it was like we both released things around the same time, and I was like, oh, interesting, cool. Like, I wonder how we can learn from each other. And it was Jill Sobule.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I know that name.
Yeah, she was a New York folk singer, and she did something similar too. There was some article about it, and I remember saying like how we were doing things differently. And I want to say that hers was a bit more Kickstarter in orientation and less like long term, but I could be wrong. It's been so long.
Gotcha. Jamie, at that time and now, but I kind of want to save now for a little later, but at that time, are you somebody who, you're talking about these 10,000 hours and putting in the hard work and putting in the daily effort every day? Were you songwriting every day? Was that like one of those people where I'm going to pick up my guitar and from 1 to 3, or you know what I mean, I'm going to work on music?
Initially, no.
Okay.
And that became a lesson learned for me, that the songwriting side requires that same 10,000 hours
Mm-hmm.
as the business side.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say it took me 2 to 3 years to figure that out.
Okay.
And it came from like some hard advice that I got, but sometimes the hardest advice is the best advice. And I had done a songwriting workshop in which a hit songwriter, I think Dan Wilson, who's from Semisonic, he was the lead singer of Semisonic, and he wrote a hit for Adele and the
Yeah,
Dixie
yeah, I know
Chicks.
Semisonic.
And
Yeah.
so part of this workshop is they'd bring in people and they would dissect your song and give you feedback.
Okay.
And he dissected one of my songs from my first EP, I think, and he said, "You have the voice of someone I think could be a star. Now go home and write 100 more songs." And I was like, and I was like pissed for a little bit, and then I went back and thought about it, and I was like, yeah, that's right. That's right. You know, that I need to take the same approach to writing as I do business and hone that craft and devote time and energy and love to it. And so from that point on, shortly after that, I moved to Nashville and began, I think I wrote that previous year, I wrote, in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 songs. And the following year, I wrote closer to 100, 150 songs. And for the next 5 years, I was doing that as well and writing, as much as I possibly could.
You just write every day.
Pretty much, I would say, for a couple of years, it was every day. And then I kind of found a sweet spot of like 2 to 3 days a week where I could still feel the creative juices, not feeling like it was work. Sometimes you end up like, you have to find your own rhythm and your own, what keeps it inspiring for you. And, I for a while, I did the Nashville country writing thing where then eventually you feel like you're writing the same damn song every day. Eventually I found my kind of happy spot was either writing for me or writing for film and TV. Because, for me, it's just, I know what I want to say, and it's fulfilling. For film and TV, it's a moving target challenge, and it's like shooting with a sniper rifle instead of a shotgun. And you'd get a brief of like, hey, this TV show is looking for this kind of song with this kind of message. And then it's like, all right, cool. I think I can do that. And got to work with some really inspiring producers in Nashville here over the past few years doing that. And we've had some pretty cool placements with it as well.
Where have you been placed?
We had the biggest one was this was a couple of years ago. We had the promo song for the Today Show ran for almost a whole year.
It's awesome. It's fantastic.
It was pretty cool. And we've had same for World of Dance on NBC, and then a bunch of VH1 MTV shows. Sometimes the shows are so bad that you're kind of like, I'm not going to promote this one because this is
16-year-old mom.
Yeah, exactly. But it's been fun. And, I would say songwriting as a career is really difficult, but it's as an artist to have, a segment of your income come from that is really fun and inspiring. But if I had to depend on it entirely, it would be really stressful, because the way streaming is set up is really to the disadvantage of songwriters. And it's something that doesn't get talked about quite enough, and it may evolve and change, but it's because of this like 100 years of history where all radio money went to songwriters and publishers. And so when streaming came along, the labels bought into the streaming companies and were able to shift that model so that 60% of the pie goes to labels or the master owner, labels or artists. 30% of it is the fee that stays within the streaming company, and then only 10% of the pie goes to writers and publishers. So if you think that's where, like, when Pharrell talks about how he only made $4,000 on Happy, that's because there's 5 writers, each of which has a publisher. So they're splitting 10 ways, the 10% of 100 of a penny on every play. So it's like, in that, when you look at it that way, songwriting could be extinct as a career in the next decade if they don't alter that.
I'm so with everything you're saying, and I appreciate you saying it. I think the audience needs to hear it. Would you say that really the only way to make a living in songwriting now is with placement?
I would say yes. I would say that's your best bet. And it's still really hard, and there's a million people trying to do it. So again, 10,000 hours, you got to be great. You have to, like, if you're doing it just for that, it has to be something on the quality that you would release as an artist to your fans tomorrow, but it has to be made in 48 hours, written, produced, made, pitched. So it's a crazy game, but it's like the chances in that are like a scratch ticket versus trying to write a country or pop hit. It's like playing the lotto.
Wow. Great analogy.
So, you may win some on a scratch ticket. It's going to be $5 here. It's going to be $10 here. And if you do it enough, it's going to be significant and it's going to compile over time. But writing a country hit right now is like, there's 10 people in town. You have to know the artist personally. Otherwise, the artist is going to write it themselves, because there's no touring money right now. There's no CD money. It's just, yeah. A friend of mine ran the numbers on every top 10 country hit for a year. And essentially there was not one completely outside writer song that wasn't part of this like inner clique. That was it. And they're like, okay, cool. I'm not going to stop devoting all my time to that.
You're talking about writing for stars.
Yeah, exactly.
Getting the writing credit, they sing the song, but you get
right.
the back
And
end.
It used to be a thing that was like, a lot of people could do that, because you could be the 10th song on a 90s country hit artist.
Yes.
So, and that would still make you 50 to 100 grand. But
yes.
now it's like the only songs that are making the money are basically the 1 through 5 on the radio charts. And
wow. That's it.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Wow.
They all sound the same because everyone's trying to write that same song that's going to be a hit. And, you have 10, 15 amazing writers in town here that have been here forever, that are personally friends with Tim McGraw and Kenny Chesney.
Yes.
Like a Laurie McKenna or,
yes.
Shane McAnally. And they'll have songs that are completely theirs that get cut, but otherwise the artist has to be on it.
If you had your druthers, if you lived in a different culture where you could make a living as a songwriter, where more people could get cuts, do you love songwriting that much? Would you just songwrite all day, every day and just get by and do your thing? Do you pursue these other interests out of necessity, or is your passion for them equivalent to your passion for songwriting?
Yeah, I would say my personality type is not one that can do any one thing.
Okay.
All the time. It goes back to when I was a kid. I've been told that I operate on a different battery than most people. And so I love to work. I love to work hard and all the time. And if I do any one thing, I kind of get bored. So I need to keep my interests varied. I mean, back when we were in high school, I had equal passions for playing soccer as I did being in the musical. Or
Didn't you swim?
And swam, yeah. Swam for a long, long time, 13 years. I think by the time I was in high school, I was like, no more. But, when you do it, when you do something your whole life, you keep doing it.
If after this interview you were going to go write, what are some of the first things you're thinking about?
I have a few different approaches. I mean, if there's something that like emotion that I'm feeling, viscerally and consistently, then I'm going to process that through a song for sure. I have like a hook book of ideas and melodies and stuff to like ensure that I never get stuck. And so I'll often delve into one of those.
And that must be amazingly helpful when these placements come in. You have 48 hours. Oh God, get the book out. What do we got?
Right. Totally. Yeah. So that's where I'll delve into that a lot. And I think I can't recommend having that enough, especially if you co-write with other people, because then you get into a room and you can just start throwing ideas around and you're not just staring at the wall.
What percentage of your songs speak to your actual life and your experience?
I would say the ones that I release as an artist.
Yes.
All of them.
All of them.
Yeah. I pretty much only release songs that I feel like speak to me personally. And then I have, a countless number that get pitched to film and TV or get put out on Patreon, things like that, that come with a caveat like, hey, here's this song. It was inspired by this. And I want to show you guys the story behind it and show you a bit of what else I like to do. But to me, I feel like when I release music, I want it to be honestly me.
Do you think that for a song really to resonate, it has to come from that place?
For me, I mean, not everyone's that way, you know, like Randy Newman or Brandy Clark, like they're
Hmm.
third person writers and they're like to tell a story of somebody else. But just me personally, I have a hard time doing that. I don't feel like I can sing it as honestly unless it's coming from a place personally.
Just because I like vignettes and little moments and we could share this song in the interview, tell a story of something that happened to you that became a song.
So I have a song on my last record, All American Mutt, called "Look Up," and
I know it.
For about a year I walked around sort of like Larry David, as people would walk into me because they were texting, as they like would walk in front of my moving band van because they were texting, and it like was this growing anger. And then I read a news headline that said "Man walks into bear while texting." And it was sort of the like, okay, this is it. I have to write this song. And that's where Look Up came from.
That song's so great because the title tells you the whole thing. The story is very clear. Everyone can relate to it. Do you find that when you're trying to pitch a song, sell a song, get it reviewed, get it on radio, that being able to distill the concept down and be so clear is critically important?
I do. Well, there is a lot of levels to why you release music, right? And like, if you just write 10 songs a year, then those are the 10 songs you're probably going to put out because they're most meaningful to you and because that's your process. And I respect that highly. And sometimes art is your number one goal in putting something out that means something to you. For me, I write and record enough that what makes the final cut has multiple layers of consideration. There's the does it check the like honest storytelling thing for me, that does it feel like I can sing this honestly and be proud of it? Okay, that's number one. Cool. Does it feel like it's going to affect people in some way? That like, are they going to feel something and come up to me and tell me about it? That's number two. And then it's like the marketability of it. Does it fit a t-shirt? Yeah, as a middle-class musician, like you think the way I'm going to be making money touring is going to be merch and going to be these things. So if none of my songs have like any cool thing to put up on a shirt or this, like that's something to think about, you know? I sold more Look Up shirts than I have sold anything altogether.
Is that true?
Yeah, and it's simply because Look Up falls right on the breastbone. And it's,
This is why.
I have had so many bar owners come and buy like 10 shirts for their bartenders because they're like, oh, the gawkers, we got to tell them to look up. And I'm like, well, that wasn't what I wrote about, but, there we go. Let's double down on it. Tank tops.
You told me a similar story last time we were together. I think about koozies.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I have a song called Size 9 Cowboy.
Yep.
And it's joking about me not having super large feet. And when I made, it's a fan favorite at shows because it's pretty funny. And when we made koozies, I saw that there were boot koozies available. And I was like, well, why get a normal koozie when you can pay an extra quarter to get a boot koozie, and then I can make them size 9 boot koozies. And now, like, if you can thread funny, honest commentary that connects songs to products, to your fans, that create lasting moments,
yes,
that's going to be what people are going to remember. And they're going to share that because they're going to remember that story and they're going to remember that show. And that's how you can support yourself. And I know it's not sexy. It's sort of like, oh, this artist is thinking about this marketing and business stuff. But if you want to make a living doing this, you have to.
You know, man, it may not be sexy, but it is smart. In the folk scene, the story is literally as important as the song.
Mm-hmm. Either like the lead up story you're saying, or the story of this. Yeah, okay. Totally.
I have been to shows where a folk singer has talked more than they've played.
Totally.
Is that true for country? Is that true in the scene you're into, or is it different?
100%. No, I think it's true of anyone that's playing listening rooms.
Perfectly put.
I think that there's three elements to like any show to me, and it's the song, it's the experience, and it's the entertainment value. Like if you go to a show and the person just plays their songs back to you and doesn't engage, then like what's the point of going to the show? We're competing for people's $15, or we were pre-pandemic, and like why come to you as opposed to going to the movies or doing this other thing? And it's because you want to, like, when I think of a show, I think of it in terms of moments, not songs. It's how does that story, it could be a story, it could be a guitar solo, it could be a sing-along with the crowd. Those are the things that people are going to remember. And I think you're right. I across genres, to me, if an artist isn't engaging and doesn't tell me stories, it doesn't connect, then I'm bored and I want to leave.
Oh my God, so many things to say on this. Yes, there's a wonderful woman here in Austin named Joanna, big shouts to Joanna, who is like a super music fan.
Yeah.
She goes to 6 shows a week, probably 8 or 9. Probably someday she goes to 2. I'm sure you know people like this.
Yep.
And I once said to her, Joanna, you love music. You see amazing music all the time. With going to all these shows, what stands out? And she says, it's the moments. It's the, hey, my friend's in the crowd, come up here and sing. It's the, I sang the wrong words.
Right. As long as you make a moment of it.
And I guess where I'm trying to go with this is, man, it does work. I remember I saw somebody, it was, name's not going to come to me. That's okay. But he told the story about, like, I was driving down my street and my neighbor had a Confederate flag. He was out taking out the garbage. And I thought, oh, fuck it. Why the hell not? And I pulled over and I said, hey, I'm your neighbor. What's up with the Confederate flag? Why do you put that up? And it led to a really amazing conversation about race and American history. And then he played this song about that experience, and I was hooked. And I really listened. And I think for me, sometimes I feel stuck because I feel like I got to tell the story of my song. And I have stories, and there were things I was thinking about. But when it's a made-up story, it feels more hollow.
Totally.
To turn this into a question, one is, how did you realize you needed to make the stories from your vantage point? And when somebody does what I do, when you hear a song that didn't happen to somebody, is it able to resonate with you, or does it not land for you?
I definitely realized it personally just in playing show after show after show. But I also say, like, there was like I had the opportunity to tour with Ellis Paul.
Okay.
Who's a great folk artist, troubadour. And I did that early on in my career. And he is one of the greatest storyteller entertainers that I've ever met. And he's been playing listening rooms for 30 plus years. And what I learned night after night was that he had a combination of pre-existing stories that were in his pocket that he could mix and match into moments depending. And then there were actual new things that happened every night with interactions with the crowd, unique moments that made every show unique. But he also had things that worked and that people connected to. And I eventually saw fans mouthing the words to his stories back. Like they were equally as important to people. Like they felt like they were in on it. And that was the sort of, oh, and it made me start thinking, like, there's a lot of things to write about, but maybe start keeping that in mind. So you reverse engineer it. And when you have a funny story, something weird happens to you in life, capture that, write that down, and then write a song about it. And it may be not, you don't have to be literal with it, but maybe there's a nugget that came from that can tie back to that funny story. So that was sort of the moment for me, and why, again, like I said, there's a lot of songs to choose from, but sometimes you think about these factors, and one of them is, how is it going to go live? If live is a big part of your career, then record the songs that are going to go well live, and resonate, or have stories with them. They're going to, like, that Size 9 Cowboy song, I'll probably never record it.
Wow.
I'll probably just be a live song that comes with that story, so that if you want to hear that, you got to come to a show. And, there's something to be said about that too,
Let's talk about touring for a second. Before this year, how big a part of your life was touring?
If you look at the last decade, it's been a huge part of my life. For, 5 years, I was 150, 200 days a year on the road. And then I would say of the last 5 years, it's gradually, like, the goal is to play fewer shows to more people. And
Got it.
that's the, I think that because 150, 200 days a year is not sustainable to be a human. Like
Yeah.
you have to sacrifice a lot. And you can't like settle down and start a family and do these things when you're doing that. It's like really hard. And you see people that sacrifice a lot all the time to do that. So I eventually was paring it down to the point where I was like, the last couple of years, I was, in the 50 to 75 shows a year that paid the same as the 200 used to, which was great. But it was like, it kept my sanity better, it allowed more time to write, more time to pursue entrepreneurial ideas that I was exploring or tossing around. It just freed up that space to create other things.
Do you like the road?
I do. But as I got older, I disliked certain parts of it. Like I will not sleep on a couch anymore. I won't sleep in a cheap motel anymore either. Like that's almost how I can gauge my success was like, where did I sleep? Started in a couch, then it was a Motel 6, then it was, like a Red Lion Inn or whatever, the next level up. And now we're like Holiday Inn Express. Or then it was the band used to all be in one hotel room. Wait, now we get 2 hotel rooms. Now we each get our own room. And like, that was kind of the growth there. And, as you get older, you sort of like the price to get off your ass and be really uncomfortable changes. And that's just, I would say, the only thing that's really shifted. I need to go out and play shows for people. It's like, it's a part of my soul that if it doesn't get exercised, like, hurts. So that it's to a certain level, but then if it's just to do it, and you're not thinking about your own personal health in the meantime, then you can burn out. And that's the risk you run. And I definitely got on the edge of burning out a couple of times and was sort of like, why am I playing this place to 50 people that like, they don't really give a shit? Like, let's not come back here. Let's just focus on the ones that really do care. Over time you learn that. But if I hadn't done the 200 days a year, I wouldn't have put in the 10,000 hours. I wouldn't have learned those lessons. So there's something to be said about just going and doing it too. When people ask me, how do I start? It's like, just do it.
Yeah. And again, to your credit, another one of these recipes for success, you did that at 23, 24.
Right. And honestly, I was probably kind of late doing that. Like I look now and I see people that are doing that at like 15, 16, that like I was having fun in bands in high school, but I wasn't taking it seriously. And like, I took the time to get a business education, which long-term for my life was the right choice. But some people, like if they don't have that like you need to get started as soon as you can. If you really believe this is what you want to do all in, just go do it. Like no matter your age.
Yeah, no, I so agree. And I didn't, and to the story I was telling earlier, I didn't really realize it till 26. So I missed the boat. I do think if you really want to do this, if this is your dream and you can't see any other path, you can get a show playing Making Tips at a coffee shop. So you do that. And then the next time you say, hey, I've played in this market before. I played at that shitty coffee shop and made tips. Then you maybe get the bar gig.
Right.
Then you go back in 6 months. I've played a couple shows here. The first one had 10 people, next one had 20. And I do think with relentless dedication and hard work and years, you can do it. But it's hard to start at 23. It's hard to start at 26. So for the young people who hear this, if you want to do this, you can. You just got to go.
Yep, totally. And you got to know that it will be 5-10 years. And do you love it enough that it's worth the next 5-10 years for you? And there will be a lot of amazing moments. There will be a lot of really hard moments. There'll be everything in between. And if it's what you love to do, then it'll be worth it all along the way. If you're kind of like, well, I just like to do it, then, now's probably not the easiest time to jump into the music industry. So,
talking about making a living for a second with the touring, do you think that touring is a viable way to make an income? Is that still something people can do?
Well, not in a pandemic.
Yeah, well said.
Gosh, I wouldn't try to jump into it for another year. If that, like, I would just create all the best things you can and find another way to make money, but create right now. Like I have booking agent friends that say, if you don't have enough savings to get you to next fall, then find another job. I think it's like 85% of the average middle class musician's income is touring. So
it is.
Yeah, that's like the general stat. So if that's why right now is the hardest time ever to get started in that. If I were 16 and doing this, I would probably try to figure out TikTok for the next year because like it's just, you can't really go play shows and make money. So lock yourself in your room, get really good at producing songs, try to figure out TikTok so that when you can go tour again, you have those tools at your disposal. Utilize this extra time to hone those 10,000 hours in ways that will pay off when you can tour. Just know that right now is a tough time to actually make a visceral living as an independent artist.
What are you prioritizing right now? And I'd love to hear about some of the projects you're working on.
Yeah, it's interesting. At the start of this year, pre-corona, I told my wife that like I was tired of like selling myself.
Okay.
In music. Okay. And that was like, I like wanted to focus on things that had a little bit more service oriented and like giving back in some way. And I think at the time I was like, I want to go like volunteer more. And that was like where that was coming from. Then when COVID hit and it was like in mid-March, a couple friends and I were like, we need to do something about this. All of our friends, their tours are getting canceled. Like I was scared for my bandmates, and like these things are like, what's happening? And so we put together this giant telethon to raise money for Music Cares and their COVID-19 relief fund. And we launched a nonprofit around it called People Supporting Artists.
You raised 15 grand?
Yeah, we raised 15 grand for this telethon, which was awesome.
Incredible.
I mean, yeah, it's like you look at what, Live Nation can donate or something and you feel like it's nothing, but I felt like a lot.
It's a lot.
So yeah, through that, I connected with this foundation called the American Non-Smokers' Rights Foundation, and they helped sponsor the event for us. And then we started talking about this national program that they were focused on pushing music cities that still allowed smoking to go smoke free in their venues. And I was like, yeah, Nashville still has smoking. And it's been like a long-term passion of mine. Like I remember in middle school harassing friends for smoking outside of Friendlies on a half day. And like, I was always that guy. And my aunt passed away last year from COPD from smoking. And so it was like, yeah, I appreciate it. And it's always been something close to my heart. And when they were talking about it, I was like, yeah, they're like, do you want to help us with this? Like, maybe we can start just by engaging some artists. We're going to sponsor like a live from home series and help support some people. Could you help bring them together? And I'm like, yeah, how many do you want? And then it just started snowballing. And I connected with the director of public health in Nashville and the mayor in Nashville and some major nonprofits that were all like, we've been trying to do this for a while, but their pieces fit together. And COVID presented this opportunity to say, hey, are we really going to reopen bars and music venues with smoking when there's a pandemic that's attacking our lungs? So it presented an opportunity to shine a spotlight on this old issue again. And we've been running with it. And the momentum is, it turned into a local coalition called Musicians for Smoke-Free Nashville. And we like have some serious possibilities of making Tennessee smoke-free next year. And
dude,
it's been pretty cool. So we wrote a campaign song for it. 8 Nashville artists are singing on it. We produced a bunch of really cool videos for it. And it's been a really cool way to like explore creativity and music through the voice of being an advocate. And it's made me think about how else can I and fellow musicians utilize our voice in a time where we're not really on the road, but we have this platform and we have fans. Like, how do we utilize our voice to enact change in a real way? And I'm getting a crash course on policy writing and how change actually happens. Like there's 3 levels of it, and it often dies at the second level. You know the problem, then you protest the problem, but usually you want that thing to change, but you say you want it to change and then it doesn't change, and then you get distracted and you give up and you go back to the next thing, and then you get mad again and do it. And so I'm learning like, oh, if you actually want to change, this is how you do it. It's tedious, it's slow, but so is everything else that I've been doing for the last 10 years. So like why don't I apply that to like making real change happen?
This is awesome. This is so cool to hear. Good for you. Good on you. I'm in a similar place, Jamie, where I think for years I thought the only thing that would make me super happy, make me super satisfied was playing at a festival. And I too have been expanding. I direct the jazz ensemble at the School for the Blind. I've been getting into connecting music with environmental events. working at the domestic children's shelter. And I say all this to say that I've been blown away by how much it means to me. And opening this whole door, really more of a door, like a whole world of joy and satisfaction I can find from it. Have you had a similar experience?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. You start off thinking that, like you said, that a festival, that a big crowd, that a thing that's good. That's the sort of selfish reason for wanting to do it, to like have that success and scratch that itch. But you come to realize that music is therapy, and music can make change, and music can provide a level of happiness on so many levels, that it's not just those things. And the ones that tend to be more fulfilling are the ones that really change people's lives. And if you can change people's lives through music, then that's, to me, the most successul thing you can do.
Do you see this work becoming more central in your life over the next decade?
I do, very much so. I think that I'm in the midst of exploring how I take this and grow it and turn it into something that can enact change across issues and help empower artists to take the things that they're passionate about and really turn them into real change.
Amazing. Okay, Jamie, this is my last question for you today, man. I want to understand how you use these hours in a day. The first thing you said when we started this conversation today was hard work, and everything you've said since has only showcased that in spades. I know, being in the same industry as you, that of the 10 things that you do, you could do any of them full time. Booking is a full-time job. Social media is a full-time job. Songwriting is a full-time job. Recording and producing. You're now involved in multiple entrepreneurial pursuits, foundations, activism.
Jamie, what the hell is a day like for you?
Well, it involves a really strong cup of coffee in the morning.
Yeah.
It involves a happy hour beverage of mindfulness with my wife to make sure that we're checking in and just be here now and appreciate the moments, so that it doesn't pass, because it can pass by really quick otherwise. And then it involves just a lot of time management.
Yeah. Talk about that.
There's just a lot of time that we can waste in a day on social media, on TV, like you don't even realize it. And it's okay. I mean, time wasted it depends what your goals are, right? If you don't care, then if you're going into it with the intention of, I want to watch this TV show because it makes me happy, then hell yeah, do that. I certainly do at times as well. I work faster than most people, so I can get a lot. I like type really fast. I write 200 emails a day, probably at a speed that's like way faster than most people can. So that helps. But then I utilize time that would normally be downtime. So like if I'm driving 20 minutes to the grocery store, I've allotted to make a business call in that 20 minutes. Like every element where there could be time wasted, I usually assign it to something that I can make the most of that. And I know some people might think that that's crazy, but that's just my process, at least.
To what degree do you have a routine? Like, do you do like email from 8 to 10 every day and then songwriting from 10 to noon? Or do you let every day be different?
Definitely in the mornings, spend most mornings on email. Probably 8 to 10, 8 to 11. That's, let the coffee process, where I'm not like I'm not like a get up early and exercise guy. So I'd like save the afternoon more for exercise, for meetings, for being active. I'm more mentally sharp at that time. And then usually early evening, it's responding to things. So it's putting things out in the morning, addressing goals in the afternoon, and then responding to anything that needs to be responded to in the evening, kind of thing.
I think people who aren't musicians don't understand how little time musicians spend playing music.
Right. And yeah, totally.
It's hard to find time for it.
It is. I know. Even when you're on the road, though, it's like most of the time you're just driving or loading gear, and then an hour a day you play. When I was co-writing more in person with people, that would be late morning to early afternoon kind of thing. But now I pick up my guitar more in the evenings, I would say. And it's more of a reflective kind of time for me then. And the days have been crazier with work. I never thought that I would be working this hard during a pandemic, but yeah, there you go.
Well, I think that's the perfect place to leave it. And considering how busy you are, you sharing your time today, I so appreciate it.
Oh, it's a pleasure and honor, man. And it's great to see where the journey we've come from Northampton High School to here, right? Nashville and Austin.
You've made us all proud from NHS. No, seriously. And I just think it's just cool to hear your story, Jamie. And I'm proud of you and excited to follow you as the years go by and see where you go. I think that I love your music and I'm excited for all the music that you're going to create, and I'll do that. But the fact that you're moving into this activism stage and connecting that music with some other things societally is really important, and I think will just deepen the meaning for you, and I think deepen your fans' connection to what you're doing.
I appreciate that, man, and I think so too. And I'm excited to see. Even though 2021 seems scary, I'm excited to see where it brings. I'm not where I thought I would be at the start of this year, but I think I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. So, and I think that's, if we can all think about it that way, then we can approach each day with a sense of a fresh start and, making the most of it.
Perfectly put. Jamie Kent, thank you so much.
Sasha, great to see you, man. Take care. Keep rocking.
Cheers.